Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. If you're new here, if this is your first time listening, my co-host Amanda and I, we host a new wellness guest every week, and we release our new episodes typically every Sunday. Amanda, this is our first episode with her coming back and joining me again. She's back co-hosting with me after her much deserved, much needed maternity leave after having her new little one, and I'm so excited. I'm sure everybody is too. So I have to say really quick, welcome back, Amanda.
I'm happy to be back. I did Spotlight for one episode with Jenna, and yeah, I'm here. I will be very sleep deprived and not looking my best because, I have a 3-month-old that doesn't like to sleep through the night, obviously. So, but I'm here. We're here.
Yeah, we'll take any version of everyone, like I always say. So, but yeah, this week we're hosting a friend and a fellow TikToker, Katie Ridings. Katie, I've never said your last name out loud, but I hope I just said it correctly.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Okay, and we're going to talk on barriers to self-advocacy and mental health treatment, as well as her own unique perspective on being a consumer in mental health treatment while also working in the field. Welcome, Katie. Thank you for joining us on your Sunday morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Katie, let's get into it. So we did a little brief intro. We met you on TikTok, but who are you? What's your background? What do you do? And why did you pick this topic? Why did you feel like this was an important one to share on today?
Okay. Katie, I live in Wisconsin, so Midwest. I went to school and got a bachelor's degree in psychology and women's studies. Graduated way back when, 2013. Since then, I've done a little bit of everything. So a lot of group homework, personal care stuff, which I loved but didn't love. And I've done a couple of nonprofits. Right now, I'm currently at a nonprofit workforce resource, and I'm a career planner, aka case manager, for individuals in the FSET program. It's the Food Share Employment and Training Program. I never actually say the whole thing out. It's just FSET. And so I meet with people who are on food share, so lower income, and we create employment goals and training goals. But really, it's kind of any goal. We make an employment plan. That's what we call it. But I mean, I see people who some of their goals are housing because they're homeless. They have no transportation. Some of them are wanting to, work on mental wellness. And then obviously there's the, getting jobs, and then we help with schooling and stuff like that too. Definitely very rewarding, but very stressful.
Is food share similar? Sorry, is that?
That's the same thing, so continue.
Is that food assistance benefit through the county? We here in Ohio, we would call that our SNAP program, supplemental nutrition. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then why this topic today?
Well, everything mental health is pretty important to me. But I would say within the last couple of years, I've really struggled with some stuff with not necessarily my mental health, but getting proper care for it because of these barriers. And I know if I am experiencing some of these barriers, and I feel like I'm pretty self-aware and able to, advocate for myself. I can't imagine what it might be like for people who aren't necessarily as self-aware or as vocal or all that stuff.
Absolutely. And I know we're going to talk on the topic, so I'm not going to disclose anything, but you and I have, had different conversations on different experiences that you have had on your own journey. And then you get the other side of the coin on the case manager side. I know are you specific? Well, I know in our field how blended roles can get. So do you primarily do career case management, or do you find yourself kind of people are walking systems? So it's not, I'm sure you're not just working with people on career aspects of wellness?
Yeah, so I mean, they have to be like the employment plans are career focused. So, I mean, usually there's some kind of employment goal. A lot of times, people will say, "Well, I just want a job," or I just want to have housing. And oftentimes I'll encourage them, and I'll say we could put any kind of goal you want on there. It doesn't have to be um, a job related. It doesn't have to be a training related. If you want to learn more about this topic, like let's find some online trainings. Um, if housing is a barrier for you to get employment, then let's put that on there. Technically, it's not an employment goal, but it can help lead to employment.
It's like a stepping stone. And Kelsi and I think in our very first episodes we did the 8 dimensions of wellness, didn't we? We broke it down. Yeah, of like financial wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, all those things. So they all come together. And I worked for a housing first program way back when I first started. So, with the idea of giving people housing before you focus on anything else so that they can have that safe place to heal from substance use, to be mentally stable and get access to treatment, to have an address to put down on an application when you're applying places, right? When I worked with homeless populations, that was one of the biggest things, is what are they going to do, put down the shelter address? That they felt embarrassed by that. So yeah, absolutely, I think those things are all tied together.
And yeah, so then it's like we're navigating in our own personal life, every human has mental health. We've already talked on the whole stigma tied to that compared to other areas of health. But yeah, I figured in your role and things, you see other barriers that different people face as well. So let's jump into just the general, some of many, as I kind of typed out in my own bullet points, some of the many barriers that people face when engaging and pursuing their own mental health treatment.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that I've probably been really lucky and I've not had as many barriers as other people. So for that, I'm thankful. But the barriers that I've experienced have been extremely frustrating. And so I can't even imagine. I would say one of the biggest things for me, so I've been a mental health consumer since I was 19. I am 31 now, so I can't do the math this morning. 11, 12 years?
I know I could speak for myself. I don't math, but
I think it's 12. And it's just kind of been a struggle fest. It started pretty rough, and then was pretty smooth for a while, and then changes. So it started when I was in college, and the biggest barrier there was, I would say, initial pushback, because I had that stigma myself of like, oh, I don't want to go to therapy. I know when I was in elementary school, my parents divorced, and the guidance counselor brought my siblings and I to her office, and then we would read these books. And I'm like, seriously, like I just want to go back to class. And I was always like, oh, so you want to talk about your feelings, So I was really struggling. I had a staff member on campus who was amazing. She was my college coach. I was a first generation college student, low income. And so I was eligible for the program, and I'm like, heck yeah, like I'll take all the help I can get. And she knew I was struggling with some regular health stuff too, which then kind of affected the mental health as well. And she's like, Katie, I think you should really, go see counseling services. And I was like, oh, I don't know, and I didn't have insurance at the time either. Badger Care, so like our state insurance, booted me off when I was 19. I was on it when I was younger, and then booted me off when I was 19, even if I had no income, which was absolutely ridiculous. But so I was utilizing like the student health services, which was, I would say, subpar at the time. And then, so when it came to counseling services, I was like, I can't do it. And her name was Julia. That was the college coach. She's like, well, I'll walk you up there. Let's go up there and make an appointment. So if she would not have walked me up there, there is no way I would have went in there and made the appointment for myself. But just her walking with me, I made the appointment. And I'm somebody who, if there's an appointment, like, I'm not going to just like not show, because I feel like that's irresponsible, at least like to me personally. And so that, was a whole thing. So I was with student health services, dealing with some health issues, and then counseling services, which I would say was not a good fit for me. They're more, I think it's like 7 sessions in a semester is like what they aimed for, that or less. And I was needing a lot more than that, just because it was the beginning and struggling, and college is a huge transition. And so there was some kind of traumatic experiences with counseling services, because I would say they're not trained in a lot of things. A lot of them are fresh out of getting their master's, and in mental health counseling, not social work, just mental health counseling. We have a master's program in like a town that's half an hour away, and we have a lot of those people. I was lucky, and I had a intern as my counselor at the time. So that was cool because she was my age-ish, but she also was not as experienced. And so, some calls were made, times that didn't need calls made. And yeah, so there was definitely some trauma there, which is probably not exactly what you want when you're going to counseling. But in the end, I went for probably 6 or 7 months, and they said, at one point they said, Katie, I think you're just too complicated. Like we cannot handle what you need. And I was like, okay, like, what do you want me to do? Like, and they said, so we're going to discharge you. So you need to find somebody else. But we'll stick with you till you find somebody. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. As somebody not having an insurance, I had to call all of the places around town to see if they had sliding scales, any of that. I was a poor college student. So even $20 for a session is way too much. And so I thought I found somebody. I think it was $25 a session. And so I scheduled the initial appointment. It was an intern, which I was not happy about, because as soon as they were done with their internship, like, they were going to move on. And so, like, I don't want to keep switching people. That's not helpful. So I made the appointment, and then for some reason, I don't know what it was, but I ended up not going with that place. But counseling services had already discharged me. And then there was a time period when I didn't have anybody. So that was not good. They discharged me without me like being established somewhere else. So that was problematic. I mean, I'm thankful for counseling services, but it was a struggle fest.
So I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but there's so many things going through my head that I just have to like put little pins in to talk about, because I'm sorry that you had that experience, and I don't want people to be, this is so frustrating, because I want people to feel comfortable to share their experiences that they've had with seeking support, whether that's going to a doctor or specialist or getting mental health treatment, even if it wasn't great, because you deserve that, and we should honor that. And yet at the same time, I think it can put people more like back further into their like, never mind, I don't want to seek help because listen to what happened to that person and that person and that person. And I think with like upfront informed consent, we could do so much better, right? Like the college experience you had was the same that I had. So like my uncle passed away from an overdose when I was in college, and it was really detrimental to me. And I was trying to get in to see somebody, but I couldn't afford it. And they were like, go to college counseling, and I did that, and I ended up getting a counseling. They were grad students, and they had to record the sessions. And she was like, I could tell she was like, by the book, like, you know, it was very robotic, and it was not helpful for me what I needed whatsoever. And then, but at the same time, like from hearing your experience, it's like I said, with informed consent, if they just at the beginning, because I used to, it's reminding me, sorry, I'm going so many places with this, but when I did brief intervention in primary care offices, right, at the beginning, I had to say, this is my role. This is what I can see you for. I can see you for 6 to 8 sessions doing basic coping skills. I can teach you how to manage your anxiety with some breath work, some CBT, some whatever. Anything beyond that, you know, we'll refer out, we'll get you connected to someone, and I can be a bridge for you. I'll see you in between. I'll give you some resources, right? So people knew up front if they had major trauma, if they had, you know, just more needs than I could serve them in that role, that I wasn't going to start seeing them and then be like, never mind, you're too much. Because that's something that you end up internalizing then, like, what's wrong with me? But really that program wasn't meant for you, and that's okay. And then the other thing that's frustrating is the continuity of care that didn't happen for you. There was no resource list or here's some numbers or anything like that, which is standard. That all of those things should be happening if we're doing true informed consent and trauma-informed care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where are you at now? And oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just like, my brain was like grasping onto like just up until this point in the story. And thank you for sharing your story, but the multiple types of barrier, because I've had my own role of being, but I was licensed, thank goodness the university that I contracted with and was on campus for, you know, I was a licensed clinician, I had experience, whatever. But I had 3 sessions. 3. It was made clear to me that was my role. So like Amanda was saying, I made that clear that that was my role, but it hurt my feelings sometimes, because I'm like, and then you have that continuity of care of trying to find somewhere for them to go as far as lacking providers in the area, or I heard in your story, the insurance barriers, or financial barriers, and I do a lot of work in my own practice with college age students. It's one of a niche that found me, I think, and I love it, but very real things that people face. And I feel like in the college world, none of those tools are handed to you, like, and we need to do better at making things clear and teaching people. Like I always say to even all of my young adult clients, and I felt it myself at 18 or 19 or however old, I feel like we're made to have this expectation to have our whole life figured out, but at the same time, we're viewed as like knowing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so can we bridge things for these people? And it sounds like you were one of those that didn't get that, unfortunately.
Yeah. But so now, jump forward to now. There's a couple more struggles, but now I have been with my current therapist for since then, pretty much. There was a little bit of jumping around, and then I was hooked up with my current therapist. I initially started seeing her. The clinic had like a program for people who didn't have very much income, so like their healthcare was covered. So that was great. And I got a psychiatrist at that point too, who, I mean, was a psychiatrist. I didn't know much about psychiatry or what to expect. And then, as I started, having income, I actually had to, pay for insurance, which is really pricey anyways. And then it doesn't cover everything. So then you have to pay for, your own stuff. Right now, my insurance until the end of the year is great. and has been wonderful this year. I pay a lot through work, but it's been free mental health care. So I have been having individual therapy. I've had couples therapy. I have group weekly DBT therapy. And so they're trying to, get insurance bids for next year for the program. And like the insurance barrier is extremely scary again, because I don't know what they're going to have for coverage. I've been super lucky this year to be able to have free coverage. Well, not free, but, free mental health care for paying, that stuff. And the usage was high, so they wanted to find a new a new insurance provider. And I'm like, well, I'm probably why the usage was high, but I don't even care. Why pay for it if you're not going to use it? But, just thinking like, okay, if, it's not free, and even if they start charging, like $20 a session, for copay, like, well, group's going to go out the window. A couples is going to go out the window, and then I'm probably going to decrease, the sessions with my individual. So it like the never knowing, like, it's just crazy. Yeah, so that insurance is huge.
That's like a grieving process in itself too. Is like you're in this anticipatory grief state. Like, am I going to lose this person that I made this connection with? Like, am I going to be able to access these resources? And I want to challenge you, because I think you internalize like I'm a problem and I'm using all the benefits, but like the field that you work in,
Yeah.
Hello, the world we've been living in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And mental health, the wellness services, the preventative things are the things that we should be engaging in more.
Mm-hmm.
But our society doesn't put as much of a emphasis on, right? We don't put an emphasis on preventative care as we do sick care. Mm-hmm. So challenge yourself on that. You're not the problem. You're the example that we should be following.
Yeah.
I was like, the system is made to, and again, we don't want this just to be such a down feeling episode, but we have to be real about these things, because the system, I'll just use that very blanket term, is going to do its best, unfortunately, the way that ours is set up, to make us feel like the burden, so that way things can benefit them. So it can be a hard thing to take power back from something that feels so big.
Yeah. So, and it was definitely a hard year with, we actually lost to, one like direct coworker for my nonprofit at the beginning of the year, and like the week prior, a coworker in the job center. We lost him in a very, very tragic way. Both of them are very tragic. So I would hope that when they're looking at like insurance bids, that they're gonna like take into account like it was a really, really hard year. Like, we see some pretty like traumatic things, hear traumatic things, and we can't take care of advocating or helping or cheerleading for other people if we're not present and halfway there ourselves. So yeah.
What, Katie, I just want to ask, like, given all the barriers you experienced, it could have been very easy for someone to say, F it. I tried and tried again, and this isn't worth it. Like, I just keep getting shot down. I had that traumatic thing happen when I was in college with that, counselor. What made you keep going?
Probably I would say stubbornness, because I don't like to give up. Although my depression tells me otherwise, obviously. I would say definitely the rapport with my therapist that I have now, like knowing like she and I have went through a lot. And like she's my go-to person, and I can't imagine having to describe, like fill somebody else in. If I were to switch to somebody else, that would be like, I was very lucky to get who I did get after a couple of not fits. But I was like, well, they say that this is going to work, so I guess I'll try again. But having a therapist who I have an amazing relationship with has helped, especially when it came to trying to find a psychiatrist, which was a whole nother issue. Because my therapist switched clinics 3 years ago, something like that. And my insurance, there was a whole insurance thing again. And I was like, well, I don't really like my psychiatrist, the original one, anymore, but I had seen her for like 8 years. She did what she needed to do, I guess. But I always said, well, I'm going to go to my appointment in the waiting room because, I spent more time in the waiting room than with her.
Katie, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I was going to say here, I think one of the biggest barriers, like in my clinical work and this is where I feel like, and again, therapists also, it's our job to make people feel seen and heard and respected. But I think I hear two pieces. One piece is like with the psychiatry aspect, the difference and that feeling of the feeling heard and seen can be very difficult in that area of mental health care. And the other piece, kind of on that other end of the spectrum, is when you find a provider that is a good fit for you, it makes a world of a difference, but it can be very defeating feeling along that process as well. But with the psychiatry piece, I feel like I've done a lot of work with my own clients and things as far as what are some ways that we can get, you can go into that appointment like, okay, if that person's going to make me feel like I'm spending more time in the waiting room when I am with them, what skills can I use to communicate what I need? How can I be intentional with that appointment? How do I express these things? I may not change the entire system, but I deserve to feel seen and heard. And what can I do in that appointment or that time that I have with that person to get that somehow?
I think the other thing too, I'd always find interesting is that there's like this theme that regardless of whether the relationship was working out between them and their provider, whether it's a doctor, cardiologist, a therapist, a psychiatrist, people still keep going and like submitting themselves to that torture and then complain about it, right? And I've been there too, right? So but it's interesting because if you think about it as any other relationship, everybody you meet in the world, right? Like if you meet people at work or through friend groups, you're not going to be friends or best friends or even acquaintances with all those people. But the people that you do find and you want to stick with, you stick with, right? And there's no like, you don't force yourself to keep being around those people you don't like, but we do that in professional relationships. And I find it so interesting because especially when I worked in the doctor's office, this would happen often. And I'd be like, okay, you don't like that psychiatrist, or okay, you don't like that cardiologist. They don't treat you like a human or whatever. They don't listen to you. You're not heard. Want me to help you find another one within your insurance plan? Oh, I don't want them to feel what? Their feelings? Like they're making money off you. What are you talking about? Get out of here. So that's just a point I had to bring up is that I don't know. And I don't know what that is. It obviously can be so many different things for so many different people, but I feel like the system dictates our treatment when it's our treatment that we should be dictating.
And I think that person's experience getting up to that provider is huge. And because like so many things, and we don't have to go off on all of the things that could contribute to that, but that feeling of already feeling defeated, it's like, well, I'm getting something from seeing this person, and something is better than the nothing that I was getting, which is so sad and so awful that is how people are feeling in these types of relationships. Or it's like, I don't feel seen and heard, but there's a lack of, it's like a stairway of nothing but barriers. And they look back and they're like, yeah, I can't go back there. But finding the people that actually do help bridge that gap, I think is huge. And and I've talked to Katie, and like for my clients, and it's not about me, but I always say, like, I can be some other clinician's like worst nightmare. I will call you. I will email you. I will do whatever I need to do. And I feel like that's, and then that can go back to our own, everything's so intertwined. For those providers, how are we taking care of ourselves? So we can have that in order to give that to our clients, family, like just different areas of life.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I switched clinics, there was like a 2-year gap of not having a psychiatrist because there was none available that had openings. Which to go from having one and then not having one, and then having my primary be the prescriber who is wonderful otherwise. This is not internalized, Amanda and Kelsi, but I am a complicated person. I get it. Like, I actually like that I'm complicated. Like, I'm difficult to figure out. But when it comes to meds, I'm very complicated. So it has to be just the right stuff. And so, a primary care is not the person to do that. She did hook me up with a program that was great for a while, but a whole lot of mess as well, where I don't even remember what it's called. It was like a coordinated care program. And I think when I met you guys, I was in the middle of the coordinated care program, and I was like in the frustration stage. So the beginning was great. Because I had a nurse who specialized in like behavioral health stuff, who I would talk to each week. We'd talk about how I was feeling, but it wasn't like a therapy appointment. It was like just a check in on symptoms type stuff. And then, so she had a caseload of people, and then she would like consult with a psychiatrist.
Sounds like she was the bridge.
Yeah.
Like a nurse care manager type thing.
Yeah. And
you're you're an unique individual. You are not complicated.
I was gonna say your physical body has needs, Katie, and we need somebody that can understand what those needs are.
Yeah.
Amanda, we see you.
And I always tell people that your PCP is like the first person to start with as far as like meds or anything like that. But I think people don't realize that general doctors, general practitioners get one rotation of psych in med school, and it's usually like at the hospital on the psychiatric unit. So unless those doctors have taken it upon themselves to specialize or do additional training and education in behavioral health, they're probably not the person you want to be seeing for more unique needs, right? Like, like adjustment things, depressed mood that isn't, extensive or things like that. Sure, they can prescribe things, but beyond that, you really want to see a psychiatrist. And there is a major shortage of psychiatrists across the country. So that's the frustrating part too.
Yeah. So the coordinated care program I was in, I don't know that when I went into it, I don't think I knew that it was going to be just a year-long program. I thought it was going to be until I could get hooked up with a psychiatrist. She might have told me, I don't remember. Maybe I blissfully like just ignored it because I was like, ooh, we gotta, something's gonna happen. But as I was getting towards the end, I was like, I feel like the nurse isn't hearing what I'm saying. Because I was like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now that you're gonna graduate me or like disenroll me from the program? But what am I supposed to do now? And she, you're supposed to go back to your primary. And I'm like, but I thought the whole point of the program was kind of like a wait list to a psychiatrist. Fast forward to the very, very end. So I didn't feel like I was getting listened to. I actually made an appointment with my primary, and I'm like, hey, I don't feel like you're getting the whole picture, because the nurse talked to the psychiatrist and my primary. I was like, I don't think you're getting the whole picture. I think you guys think that like I'm like worried about like abandonment, but that's not what it is. It's just I want to have like the different pieces of like my care team like together. And I remember I talked about this with my individual therapist a lot. And then my couples therapist, I would say, is a little more, I don't know if I would say, I don't know if I would say abrasive, but not like abrasive, like not in a bad way, but she's like, Katie, just message your primary and be like, I want a referral for a psychiatrist, like a consult immediately. And she said, if you have any problems, let me know. And I was like, okay, like gonna sick the therapist on the primary. Okay, we can get this. So yeah, I think it was a couple weeks later, I had the consult, and I met with a psychiatrist and like a nurse practitioner she works directly with the psychiatrist, and she's only in the behavioral health stuff. I had like a 2-hour long consult, and I talked my head off, just like everything. And I don't think they're used to that. And they're like, okay, we have to actually cut you off now. And I was like, okay. But since then, I've been working with just the nurse practitioner. And I've met with her monthly for the last couple months. And just feeling like I'm being heard. Like those appointments with her could last 15 minutes, but I had one last an entire hour, because the previous day I had some pretty crappy stuff happen at work. And so she's like, how are you doing, Katie? And I was like, that's a dangerous question. And then I just started, bawling. And she was amazing. So again, super lucky. I love her. She's great. I have an amazing individual therapist. I have an amazing couples therapist. I have an amazing group, DBT group facilitator. So I've got a whole crew of people, which is amazing. Thankfully, because of insurance, which has been helpful. But yeah, so the insurance, the finances has been an issue. Not feeling heard, and then like trying to fight I would say the don't make waves like thought that I have in my head all the time. Like, don't be a difficult person, Katie. Like just do what they say. And that's how I was for probably the first 8 years of any of my behavioral health, treatment. I was just like, okay, take this med. Okay. So fighting that, and then having like my couples therapist be like, no, just send them a message and be like, I want this now. And like, it was just like frustration, and then it was anger, but then like I got what I needed because I like stood up for myself, and I was like, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, again, it's like that weird, like internalized power differential. Like we think that I can't say how I'm really feeling because this person has a white coat on, or my needs don't matter. I'm too much. I'm complicated, but our needs matter and are valid.
Yeah.
Oh, Katie, this is so good. I'm so thankful for you and your vulnerability and your willingness to share your journey. It's honestly going to help so many people that are stuck along some point there, right? Like, if they've had a negative experience and are nervous about reaching out again, or, yeah, I really appreciate it. Kelsi, did you have any last words before I close out here?
No, I love that you brought up the internal dialogue piece, and saying like sometimes we can be in our own way and not realize it because of our own experiences, because of the systems at play. So it's a very vulnerable thing to share. So thank you. And I'm so proud of you. That's all I want to say.
I agree. I am too. Katie, we always ask all of our guests at the very end if they have any last minute words for our audience. So that could be like a mantra you live by, your favorite quote, or just something that you come up with right now that you want to leave them with.
Oh my goodness.
I know. We put you on the spot. It's okay. Take your time.
Yeah, I guess I haven't ever listened to the very end of your podcast. Sorry.
It's okay.
You get me in the beginning and then I just
You can even build off of like your story or something, like a takeaway, not to put things into your mouth, but
yeah, I would just say like something that my individual therapist and I talk about a lot is like, if you had a best friend that was dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with right now, like what would you say to them? Would you tell them, oh, you're being too much? Or, or would you say, you know what, send that person that email, like, and advocate for yourself because you're not being too much. You deserve to get proper care and you deserve to be your own best friend.
Ooh, I love that. Be your own best friend. See, you had it. I love it. Oh, Katie, thank you so much again for being here. You're welcome back anytime. We appreciate you sharing your journey. For those of you that, like Kelsi said, make sure you like, comment, subscribe so you don't miss out on our most recent episodes. We always love feedback, so if you have any comments or questions, feel free to send that in. And then next week, Katie knows of this person. We have so many TikTok friends that we have had on our podcast. Next week, we are hosting Jason Levin. He is known as Not Your Therapist Dude on TikTok. And he's going to be talking on the use of humor in therapy, which I'm really excited about because I also use humor/sarcasm in my therapy as well. So stay tuned for that one. And we look forward to more episodes with you all in the new year. So take care. Bye, everyone.
you take care. Bye.